Welcome to a special edition of the CIRF Report, this one for Wednesday and Thursday. Yes, it says full moon, and we're going to cover the full moon. But this also includes on Wednesday, the Venus conjunct Sun going exact. And we talked about this in our weekly report. If you haven't seen the weekly report, that one still applies, although this is a little microcosm inside of that week. So the energy is a little bit more precise on Wednesday and Thursday. And let's go ahead and get started with the CIRF report. With the I Ching reading. And that's going to be a little bit different than we saw before, but it's all still overlapped between all three of these different technologies. So we asked the I Ching reading main suggestion for how to utilize the energies of the Venus conjunct Sun Wednesday and the full moon on Thursday. And what we got was very interesting because there's no change lines. And that's exactly what we asked for. Because normally we're asking for the influence plus the solution. This time we're just asking for how do we best use this energy? And here's what we got. 40, deliverance. So deliverance, reading from the Book of Changes. Thunder and rain set in, the image of deliverance. Thus the superior man pardons mistakes and forgives misdeeds. It sounds a lot like forgiveness, a fresh start, making everything, washing everything clean. And that's exactly what we have. But there is a lot more to it. So let me read this really quick. So a time of deliverance from burdensome pressure has a liberating and stimulating effect on life. One thing is important, however. In such times, we must not overdo our triumph. Speaking about, for those of you who saw the weekly report, going into excessive stimulating events or experiences, that's part of this, is not overdoing anything, moderating your triumph. The point is not to push on farther as is necessary. Returning to the regular order of life as soon as deliverance is achieved brings good fortune. If there are any residual matters that ought to be attended to, it should be done as quickly as possible so that the clean sweep is made and no regressions occur. And then it goes on to talk about how a thunderstorm clears the air and it provides growth for the tree buds and all that. But just as water washes away everything, so does forgiveness clear away misdeeds. So what is all of this forgiveness stuff? We're going to have to get into the astrology, but it's definitely there. And it's an angle that I didn't even think about in the weekly report, but it is also showing up in the DreamBot. So let's go look at that, collective dreams. First, though, we need to talk about the red arrows. And this is all about just hard work and toil. We've got our sleeves up and getting our hands dirty and sweating and working very hard, walking up hills, that sort of thing. And that is actually talked about in the Book of Changes for deliverance, is the work part. Getting your stuff done and finishing the tasks. But forgiveness is a big part of this. And so this is not the overlap. Okay. The intimacy is in the DreamBot, but it's very small meme here. Only 3 words: kiss, couch, and wife. And by the way, the female gender has been prevalent in all of the recent DreamBot runs, and that is probably because of the Venus aspect. Venus mostly representing the female energy. The other meme here in the DreamBot is a door that opens. So walking through an open door, it happens to be the front door, and it's beginning. So there might be some doors that open because of both the Venus conjunct Sun and the full moon. And that's our segue into the astrology. So let's get to it. There we go. Now this one is Wednesday, and this one is called Venus combust because when Venus gets so close to the sun, most people agree that it's about 1 degree. And it's been really close to that, but this one goes exact on 1 o'clock a.m. on the 14th, and that's Central Daylight Time, also known as Eastern Standard Time, also known as GMT -5. So if you care, but as long as the Venus is within about a degree, you're not able to see Venus in the sky. Normally, after a few days, you're going to start to see Venus start to appear on the horizon before the sun comes up in the eastern sky. And that is actually talked about in the Bible. I don't even have the reference, but the bringer of the light. And that's Venus. Venus is the bringer of the light. But I'm digressing. Let's get back to the topic at hand. And Venus is all about harmony, relationships, can get very sensual, intimacy, even balance, but also finance. And so there's a lot of memes here that are being affected by the Venus being conjunct with the sun. And it gives life. The sun gives a lot of new life to Venus. If you want to think about this in terms of like a new moon. So the new moon is a time when the moon and the sun are in the same angle, azimuth of the sky. And you can't see the moon, but the moon is in essence starting a new cycle. And so Venus is also, in this case, starting a new cycle. And this is where the I Ching really highlights the angle that I hadn't even thought of before, is the idea of forgiveness, because Venus is so harmonious and wants harmony. The only way to really get pure harmony, especially when transgressions have taken place or some emotional conflict has taken place, including in self and in other people, is forgiveness. The idea of forgiveness. And it wipes the slate clean as long as it's a genuine forgiveness. And that is I Ching 40 at its best, deliverance, hexagram 40 for the Venus aspect starting on 8/14, August 14th. Then we get into the full moon. And technically, Venus still is conjunct with the sun as the full moon is taking place. And the full moon takes place in the morning on Thursday. We talked about this extensively in the weekly report. You can also see Mercury starting to make a stronger square, a closer square to Uranus, our genius aspect. And so insights might come in, but nothing more important, according to the I Ching, of making your amends and making your forgivenesses to the people that, there were maybe objects of your discontent, or maybe asking for forgiveness might be in order. In this case, anything to produce that washing away effect, that deliverance effect, and the harmony produced by Venus. And everything else that we talked about is still in play. This does not supersede it in any way. I think this adds to the suggestions about not going into too much excess, moderating your desire for excess. I think most of us will probably feel that energy of wanting to do more of those feel-good things. So buying things, doing drugs, anything to make you feel like you're really experiencing this world. That has a tendency to be more of excess. So instead of doing that, which is an egoic me, we need to moderate, and we also need to think about forgiving other people and starting this fresh new Venus cycle on a great foot. And this is all commensurate with that full moon. And so we have to remember that full moon is a time when, again, giving to the moon receives, the moon takes, but only if you offer that up. And it was very, very metaphoric in ancient texts when people were doing all these sacrifices during full moon times or new moon times. And but it's not a ritual that we should take lightly in terms of just the forgiveness, which was invited to us by the I Ching reading. All right. So take all that together and make yourself improved person for yourself, especially in this next Venus cycle and the next half of this full moon cycle as the moon starts to wind down towards the new moon in a couple weeks. All right. I hope that helps. Let me know if I can answer any questions. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in a few days. Thanks, everybody.